Hi, I'm Stephen Aquario, the Executive Director of the New York State Association of Counties. Our upcoming fall seminar will take place on September 13th through the 15th at the downtown Marriott Hotel in Onondaga County, New York, in the city of Syracuse. This will be our first in-person conference in nearly a year and a half, and we're incredibly proud of the event that we're preparing for our members. NYSAC conferences offer the counties with an opportunity to connect with each other, to learn from one another, share ideas and inspiration. And this year will be no exception. The 21 Fall Seminar will feature over 20 workshops and plenaries on topics including cybersecurity and cryptocurrencies, electric vehicles and green energy, the American Rescue Plan, county leadership during the Great Pandemic, and much, much more. I hope you'll enjoy this preview of these exciting NYSAC workshops, and more importantly, I hope to see you in September at the NYSAC Fall Seminar.
One of the most exciting workshops that I'm eager to work on this year and present to our members is a workshop on vehicle electrification. The bipartisan infrastructure deal that's working its way through Congress right now will appropriate $7.5 billion nationally for vehicle electrification infrastructure. That includes charging stations. And this workshop, we're going to be joined by experts from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York Power Authority, and Westchester County, which is really a leader across the state. They're very much in the forefront on this issue. So you're going to hear from the experts across the state on how counties can take advantage of these new resources coming down the pipe, the resources that are in place, and it should pan out to be a really good discussion and a really helpful discussion for those of you who are thinking about how do we move our county in the direction of electrifying our municipal fleets.
Counties have been asking us about when the data for the census is coming out, and the overall data was released in the spring, late spring of this year, early summer. But the census tract data and the demographic data, that will be released in more fine detail at the end of September. So this conference is very well timed, and this workshop on census data and redistricting requirements should be a highly attended, well-attended workshop. And we have two individuals that are helping counties across the state redistrict and reweight the voting system in their county legislatures or boards of supervisors. Plus, we'll have somebody probably from Cornell University talking about the level of detail that counties will need as they explore how they should go about their redistricting process. So it will be timed well, and just a couple weeks before that level of detail will be distributed by the U.S. Census.
So with the passage of the American Rescue Plan back in March of last year, which NYSAC had lobbied extensively on with our county partners across the country, it's a huge bill. There is a ton of money being spent. There's $65 billion coming to the counties across the country, $2.2 billion just for the counties in New York. So we wanted to make sure we wanted to touch on this topic. We've done some webinars up to this point, but it's really nice to sit down with people in the room and talk through what's possible with the ARPA funding. So we are doing a workshop dedicated to maximizing ARPA Rescue Plan funds that counties will receive. And we have a national speaker coming in from the Brookings Institution. He's a fellow. He's been there for almost 10 years as a fellow. He specializes in local governments and economic development, mainly cities, but he's been diving very deeply into ARPA and the possibilities it holds. It's a really big responsibility to spend this money appropriately and efficiently and effectively, and really to possibly change the course of your community or parts of your community that have fallen behind for a long time. And that's something I think that the speaker from Brookings will kind of pique your interest in this session.
Yeah, this is going to be a very exciting session. We're happy to offer this programming to our members because it is a topic that's going to impact all of the county governments of New York State as well as other units of local government. The context for this workshop: in March of 2021, New York State became the 16th state in the nation to legalize adult use cannabis. And now, as the state is in the process of developing rules and regulations for how the adult use cannabis program will work, we want to bring in experts from New York State to talk about the implementation timeline, the local opt-out, public safety and public health considerations, as well as a plethora of other considerations county officials will want to be aware of in relation to adult use cannabis, as well as medical cannabis and hemp. We're also going to bring in some experts to talk about the economic development side of the cannabis market. So if your county is interested in hosting, let's say, adult use retail stores, what do you need to know about how to support business owners, how to make sure you have diversity in your cannabis workplace, how to make sure that you are protecting the assets of your community to make sure that there's not excess theft or other considerations that you should be thinking about in relation to cannabis, things like odor control. And we're also going to bring in someone from the Massachusetts Association to talk about their experience with legalizing cannabis and what their state can tell us about how cannabis legalization should impact local governments and what they generally need to know for their residents about how this legal market will work.
First of all, we're going to do a session on leadership lessons learned from the COVID pandemic. County leaders and county executives last year commissioned this book, Our Darkest Hours, as a mid-action report on what the county leaders were doing in response to protecting their citizens from the COVID pandemic. And the stories in this book are the stories of the local leaders. So we'll be asking 3 local leaders to talk about the lessons that they learned through the COVID pandemic. And while we're not totally out of the woods yet, there are lessons learned of what they did on the ground in their counties and how they interacted with each other and how they interacted with the state of New York, so that we can continue to work together as a team to protect New Yorkers and to protect our citizens from this pandemic continuing.
So we wanted to do a workshop on recycling and in particular product stewardship because it really is a hot topic in the environmental world, and it's something that the New York State Legislature and the governor have been talking about for a couple years now. NYSAC was very supportive of product stewardship legislation for paint that passed recently and will soon be implemented. And the whole idea behind these programs is to shift the responsibility for recycling products from counties who currently pay for that, so counties and the ratepayers, and shift that burden to the producers who make these materials. So this session will focus on a range of EPR programs that are either in effect in New York State currently or are being considered by the legislature. That includes EPR for packaging and paper, for paint, for pharmaceuticals, as well as a range of topics such as carpets and mattresses, things that are being debated by the legislature and may be passed. So we are excited to offer this session as a way to educate county leaders who are really dealing with the financial challenges related to paying for the recycling programs, which are very expensive right now. We've really seen costs rise in recent years. And we want to let them know that there are alternatives to this expensive local burden being considered, and they can attend this session to learn more about what EPR is, how it works, and how it could save their county money.
Yeah, cybersecurity has grown in intensity, and it's a priority of the county leaders across the state. Our board of directors and our county executives have all determined that this is a priority for them going forward. And the governor's office and the state Division of Homeland Security, they're very concerned about the growing number of incidents with cybersecurity. So they will be providing a speaker, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, and we'll have somebody from the federal government cybersecurity program, and they will speak about, first of all, what counties will need or do need to continue to protect their information systems and their infrastructure that is essentially all connected via the internet, and As we've seen, these incidents are growing in intensity and growing in numbers, and we really need to protect the data that we have on New Yorkers and the programs and services that we provide. And so that's really what we have. Two workshops that are designed to that. The first one is gauging a county's readiness for cybersecurity, so that we all have a sense of what we need going forward, county by county, to protect our information systems. And then the second one is kind of like a checklist from the federal, state, and local government levels on how best to protect our systems. And then we'll be also talking about new money that is available through grants from the federal government or from the state government that counties can apply for to invest in new cybersecurity readiness.
We also thought that it was very timely to do a workshop on the Infrastructure Investment Act, or the American Jobs Plan. There's a lot of terminology floating around in Washington, D.C., whether you're speaking with White House officials, Senate officials, or House of Representative members. There's a bunch of different terms out there for the comprehensive bipartisan infrastructure deal. We're going to be joined by Representative John Katko from Central New York. He's a member of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus to talk about this bipartisan infrastructure framework. He's been working really hard across the aisle in Washington, D.C. to get this deal across the finish line. We're going to be joined by him and representatives from the National Association of Counties to discuss all of the details and what counties can expect to see as part of this bipartisan deal eventually when it crosses the finish line and when the president signs it into law.
NYSAC's proud to present a workshop on policing in 2021 and beyond. I felt, and we all feel, that this was a really important workshop to put on. We actually did a similar one to this in our last conference in January, but this is a follow-up, an important part two, and the reason for that being is in between this conference and the last, on April 1st, 2021, all 57 counties in New York City put into the state their police reform plans. They had community interaction, as I think most of our members are aware, hearings on how exactly can we reform the police to make a more efficient, better police force, providing security to our communities, and having more community interaction and support with this important service. So this part two is going to really focus on not so much the steps that were needed to go into that plan, but this is going to talk about the plans themselves and what counties put in and what they've actually put into place since April 1st, 2021. And what we want to do with this is share the really good ideas and good work that our counties put together on this, so that you can take these ideas, bring them back to your county and use the ones that maybe you haven't even heard of yet, or just ideas on how they did it. Everything, things like body cameras for the police and how they got the police to agree with that, or even the funding to get that, more community input, potential foot patrolling, a lot of different ideas. I mean, there were hundreds and potentially even thousands of ideas that came from these plans to help with this really important initiative.
One problem that's plagued rural counties, suburban counties, urban counties across the state, including New York City actually, is the crisis that our emergency medical service community is facing. This is an issue that we've discussed in past conferences. We're going to be joined this year by experts across the nation, experts within county government here in New York State, and experts from nonprofit EMS providers. They're going to join us and talk about what solutions are out there and what systems are set up that you may be able to deploy in your county. We've heard from several county leaders across the state, all geographic regions, about how big of an issue this is in your community. Getting the response times down when an individual calls 911 and needs emergency services. that's the crux of the problem that we're trying to solve here. How do we bolster that community so they can respond quickly, efficiently for your residents? That's what this workshop is going to talk about, and it's a very timely, important workshop here at the NYSAC conference.
Another really important workshop that we're putting on is dealing with cryptocurrency and blockchain. And we're always tasked by our members. Can you give us new ideas and emerging technologies and train us on these things? And we're excited to bring this one. It's I'm sure everyone's seen in the news or heard of cryptocurrency, but it's a little harder to grasp what exactly is that, and how does that impact our local government? How does it impact our community? We are bringing in an expert to help you first just understand the 101 basics of what are we talking about? What is this technology?
We are hosting another session about water quality at our fall seminar this year. Specifically, it's about PFAS, which are these man-made chemicals that have been used in everything from nonstick cookware to our pizza boxes to our stain-repellent rugs and clothes. We knew when they were invented that they were useful in that they helped to make things not stick. So they were widely used commercially in our homes, in industrial uses. But now we've learned that these forever chemicals, as they're called, don't break down, and they can actually be toxic and accumulate in our bodies. So now counties are confronted with the challenge of getting these chemicals out of our environment, and particularly out of our drinking water. So this session is a follow-up to a webinar we hosted last month. You can find that webinar on our website at nysac.org/webinars about what the state is doing to help clean up our water, in particular, get the PFAS out, what the federal government is doing, and what your county needs to know about how you can make sure your drinking water is safe, and to also regulate these products. So New York State has done a lot to make sure that different products, such as firefighting foam, do not contain PFAS anymore. But there are some advocates who think there's more work to be done here, that there are some products that contain PFAS and shouldn't because of the threats to public health and to the environment. So this session will really delve into what the federal, state, and local governments are doing in relation to protecting their residents from PFAS, regulating their use, and remediating the damage they cause to our environment.
So the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our physical, emotional, mental health on an individual basis, as a community, and as a state and a country, really. This workshop that we're bringing to the conference is going to focus on mental health challenges. How are counties responding to both our youth and our kids coming back to school, some of the challenges they may face, our adults and those who have suffered a loss either on a personal or a professional level, and even those who are on the front lines, the frontline workers who are dealing with the everyday trauma of helping those who are inflicted with a COVID-19 virus. This workshop is going to showcase and highlight 4 directors or commissioners of community services from counties across the state, how they're working to really address this issue and bring solutions to the table so your county can look to help those who are in need, those who are facing mental health crisis. So we encourage you to attend this workshop. Again, it's a timely subject, really something that's impacting counties and communities across the entire United States.
This year's workshop on climate change we're very excited about. We have made it a tradition in recent years to hold at least one session on climate change, understanding how important it will be in all of our communities, and also recognizing that New York State passed sweeping legislation. This is the Climate Act that is known across the world for being one of the most aggressive climate change legislations, pieces of climate change legislation rather, for setting aggressive greenhouse gas emission goals as well as renewable energy goals. So the legislation, this is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, sets a goal of achieving 100% zero-emission electricity by 2040, as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 85% by 2050. Very ambitious goals, really leading the nation here. And this workshop will focus on how New York State is implementing this act. It takes several months and years to plan the implementation and meet these goals. So we want to talk about how local governments fit into the plans that the state is developing, how it will impact their day-to-day operations, what they need to tell their residents about what to expect in relation to this legislation, and how counties can consider adopting their own goals or supporting New York State in the fight against climate change. So we hope county officials who attend this session will get an update, for the first time in person in a while, about what has been happening at the state level. There's been a lot of planning happening. We're really seeing the pace of things pick up. So this is a great time to attend a climate session if you haven't in a while, and learn the latest about what is coming down the pike from New York State and how your county should prepare for the impacts of this legislation.